In this interview, I meet up with Judy Arnall, who is a certified brain and child development specialist and a master of non-punitive parenting and education practices. She is also a best-selling author of 5 print books on non-punitive parenting topics. She is also a mom to 5 children. Let's welcome Judy Arnall. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me, Kohila.
Thank you. I wanted to start by asking you, you are a parenting expert, and parents all over the world are dealing with uncertainty and major change over the past few months. How has this affected the parent-child relationship?
Okay, so parents over the last few months everybody says, oh, we're homeschooling, but they're not really homeschooling. I think the equivalent is they're doing homework all day. So they're helping their kids learn at home, but it's not really generated by them. It's generated by the school. So that changes the relationship in that it puts the parent more into an authority figure that the teacher used to hold in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And they're not just parent anymore. They're kind of a bit of a facilitator, but also a bit of a police person to make sure kids do the work and get on that online class and hand it in. And they're experiencing probably pushback from the younger kids who really don't learn through online methods. So it's adding an increased element of another thing on their list they have to do pretty well. Yeah.
Yes. And a lot of the parents also had to work during this time, right? At home.
Yes, a lot of parents have to work at home, and they have to keep babies, toddlers, preschoolers, school-age children busy. The teenagers, they're sleeping. Or they're on their phones, they're busy. But anybody under age 12, they have to engage them in something so they can work. And then also those parents who can't work at home, who have to go out and work, that's a really challenge to find childcare too.
Yeah. It was a big difference for parents who, it's an eye-opener, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it also challenged a lot of parents to know what you can do and not do, right?
Exactly. It's
2020, one of a kind of year, right?
It is, absolutely. Yeah. Unprecedented.
Yes. So one of the major changes parents are facing is a shift now in how they're going to educate their kids, right? Coming up in fall, right? Mm-hmm. What kind of challenges are you hearing from parents about this shift?
What I'm right now, parents are very on the fence. They don't know what to do. They don't know if they should be sending their kids and exposing them to wearing masks, getting yelled at because they're not maintaining 6 feet distance. And kids forget they're not going to do that. They're kids. They're going to play, and they're being exuberant, and they just hug each other and touch each other, and that's what they do. So some parents are wondering if they should send them. Other parents have been doing the homework at home, and they've discovered that their children are very much behind that they didn't know about. So they are continuing to home educate in the fall, but a lot of them don't want to do distance education. They want to take control and homeschool their way. And that way, if the kids don't listen or don't do assignments, it's okay. They can let it go. They don't have to be, the police person saying, you have to do that or else your teacher will be mad. They can do a lot more flexible homeschooling. They can do a field trip and go to the beach, or go to the park, or empower their kids to play Lego all day and make something, and those kinds of things. So, and then there are parents who want to go to work, need the childcare and employment support that homeschooling provides, but they're not too sure that's the best for their children either. and they're not too sure how a half and half is going to work.
No.
So they're right on the fence now. And I think until the governments decide definitely what school is going to look like, then you're going to see some really hard decision making on parents.
Mhm. And that's why in this summit, I wanted to explore what are these alternative educational options for the parents, right? If there is
Mhm.
a choice, it's good to start thinking about it. If there is, if it comes to time to decide, it's not
Mhm.
well, you're not deciding without any research, right?
Right,
Yes, yeah.
right.
And
Yeah.
you were unschooling your kids, and I wanted to ask you, why did you choose that? And this is a long time ago, before all of this, right? So.
Yes. Well, basically, for all parents, there's what I would call three choices, and these choices are all on a continuum.
Mm,
So when parents tend to start out homeschooling, they're doing like everybody did during COVID schooling. They're doing distance education.
mhm,
So it's no longer a matter of where the education takes place. It's a matter on who controls it.
mm,
So distance education is controlled by the school. The school sends a work home. Um, it's school in a parent's living room.
yes.
And then parents get more confident. They think, oh, I think I could teach that a little better.
Mhm,
So then they move to the middle and they do what we call homeschooling, parent controlled homeschooling. So they get to control what assignments, what curriculum, if they're going to follow the government curriculum or not. And that's a legal shift. In many jurisdictions, a parent has to notify, register, or declare that
mm,
they're taking on responsibility for their child's education. So they're letting the school off the hook, kind of thing.
yes.
So, and then, um, and then some parents move more to this end of the continuum, which is learner controlled. So where the children are empowered to decide what they want to learn based on their current interests. So
Mhm,
when I started out homeschooling, I started out with some of my kids in school, my two
mhm,
oldest, and one had a learning disability, so his needs weren't being met. And the second one was he was very smart and bored, and his needs weren't being met. So I pulled them out and thought, well, let's try it for a year. If it doesn't work out, we'll put them back in.
mhm,
So we did. So I didn't realize that, but we were actually doing distance education. And then where the school would send us stuff and we had to do it and turn in assignments. And by about November that year, the kids didn't want to do anything. No, they did.
mhm,
I was nagging. They weren't listening. We were all crying. And that's when more and more we let go. We thought, nah, we're not doing those assignments. And I like to say we were homeschoolers that never got around to homeschooling.
mhm,
And the kids played. And I had a baby and I also had a preschooler underfoot. So I couldn't really learn material to teach the kids. That wasn't fun for me. So we played. What was fun was sitting down on the floor and building things out of Lego or playing a board game or watching a movie or going to the science center or zoo. And we did more and more of that for the next 10 years.
wow.
And then I saw how much the kids were still learning. They all learned to read. They all
Mhm,
learned to do math. They even learned to write. So I had them take our country's exams at
mhm,
different grades, and they did well. They did just as acceptable or excellent. And then as they reached high school, they wanted to all go to university. So I said, okay, well, you're going to have to end up with this grade 12 course and this grade 12 course. So you
mhm.
don't need a diploma to go to university. You just need certain courses.
So good.
And so they did the work. They self-studied. I had one son who read a physics textbook when he was 13,
Wow.
and they took the exams and off they went to university.
Wow.
So unschooling was a very educational but easy way to get an education.
Yeah, and kept your parent-child relationship healthy, because in homeschooling, you said you guys were crying, right?
Well, in unschooling, there's no motivation problems ever,
Wow.
ever. The child is always developmentally ready for the material because they're picking and choosing what they learn.
Mm,
And it's not the parent saying you have to do this or else.
yeah.
And I just couldn't do that. I teach non-punitive parenting, so I can't see coercing my children to learn and punishing or bribing them to learn either.
Mm-hmm.
So
Makes
just didn't
sense.
fit for us.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to clear out is, as a never unschooled or anything, went to the school, tried to fit into the box kind of idea, right? Learned all the way the same way. One of the things I get into my head is like, what if my child doesn't learn something, or like they just kind of get stuck with video game or something, and then what do I do? How do I get them off of that? Like in unschooling, like they're
Mhm.
like, how do you keep that? Like, what if they don't get motivated? Is that even possible? You had 5 kids, right?
Mhm.
So you have a, how does that work? Like if they don't get motivated to do something, do you go?
Well, yeah, with 5 kids, I had a range of temperaments, learning styles, personalities. Um, I have to agree, there's some things they probably didn't learn. There are gaps, but in schools, kids have gaps too. So, for example, schools pick and choose what country to teach grade threes about.
Mhm.
They can't do every country in the world, they have to pick some. So, sure, my children didn't learn about Japan in grade 7.
Mm.
But when they want to learn about Japan or they need to learn about Japan, they're going to learn about Japan. So when we did a trip to Japan when they were teenagers, adults, then they did the research, and then, that's motivated to learn. So, but there are some things that all kids learn. They all learn to read on their own. They all learn to write. These are all developmental skills like walking and talking
Mm.
that we don't teach. They just happen to learn them when kids are in school. So we assume, oh, they have to go to school to learn to read.
Mm.
But they're all going to learn that. And once they can read and write, they can learn anything in the world they want to. And if you expose them to the internet, they're going to come across things that pique their interest, and they're going to want to research more, especially as they head into the teen years. They do a lot of research on the internet. They do a lot of exposure to other people's values and diversity. Just getting on Reddit, you listen to a lot of other people's opinions.
Mm.
And as far as the video game component, I love doing a whole session on video games because I live in a family of gamers. Their dad games, they game. And there's limiters and non-limiters in unschooling, and we were non-limiters. And but they learn so much through video games. They learn teamwork, cooperation, critical thinking under time constraints, all those kinds of things, which are really good skills, whether you learn them in social studies, math, or video gaming. It all stimulates the neurons.
Mhm.
So, and now I have a son who actually works for a video game manufacturer in his career.
Mhm. Mhm. So
So
that is part of the interest, right? If they're
that's,
if doing it more than what they are, that's interest led.
I would say video games are a big part of our curriculum.
Yes.
Um, and it met a lot of the outcomes that people think, oh, they should use textbooks, or let's use this workbook on problem solving, when you get way more engagement by putting your child in front of a video game and then they learn problem solving.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You have to we have to rewire it, because
Yes.
we're told if you play a video game, or if you're fooling around, right?
Yes.
Get your books. So we have to untrain.
That's the
Train up.
bribery where we actually say go for it, right? But a lot of parents use screen time as the carrot.
Yes.
And I just don't agree with that. And that's, you're putting screen time on this pedestal, and you're saying you get the carrot once you do the math, and you're just saying math isn't as fun as video gaming, where, you know, if you don't make those distinctions, kids are going to go, wow, math is fun too.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Very, very interesting to look at it like that.
Yeah.
You have a book called Unschooling to University. So I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you, why did you write this book, and what did you want parents to learn from this book?
So about the time my three oldest children, who are very close in age, they all went off to university at the same time. And a lot of their unschooled friends went off to colleges, universities, tech schools. And my friends, their kids went off. And in just our little family, we counted 30 kids that were accepted into universities, colleges, and tech schools. So I thought, okay, if I know 30 kids in my circle, there's hundreds and thousands of kids out there doing this. So
Mhm.
I thought, there's lots of books out there on unschooling, but there's not a lot of books on how they get to post-secondary. So I took a survey of our 30 kids, and they unschooled anywhere from 3 to 12 years.
Mhm.
And they all got accepted into the post-secondaries they wanted to. We had 10 kids in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And of those, we had 4 engineers.
Mhm.
And 10 kids went into humanities, and 10 went into the arts. And so I wrote the book about, this is how it answers any questions anybody has about, well, how did they get to university? Or I list 14 ways to get in, and all the 61 advantages of unschooling, and especially the brain, how the brain develops at those different stages. Which in all my parenting books, I list those stages in child development, but this book especially was tying those stages to what they learn and what they
Mhm.
should be learning and how it all fits.
That's awesome. I think it's a must read for anyone on the fence right now.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
They'll get a lot out of it. Thank you. And when we work with our children, our patients are very limited. It's our kids.
Mhm.
So, we have a different way of talking, right? What advice do you have for parents who are beginning this journey to educate their kids themselves? When you're educating that patience also is very thin.
Yes. In parenting, our patience is thin, and we all have different levels of self-control. So I wrote a book called Parenting with Patience,
Yes.
and it's all about how we as parents have to get our self-control muscle going, and then we can help our kids. So first step is take our time out. So if feel we're losing it, we're yelling a bit too much, we have a lot on our plate, we have stress, and it's so easy just to take it out on the kids, and we all do it. We're not perfect parents. I say aim for 70% good parenting. um, but the best thing is take your time out. Go take a 10-minute breather. Go to the bathroom, yell in the toilet, flush the toilet, take a deep breath, come out, start again, right? All kids can wait for you. Any problem or situation can wait. So then once you're calm, then, you might have to get your child calm. Maybe kids are fighting and you're in a meeting. Then when you're calm, you need to help them get their self-control and calm down. And then when everybody's calm, then you do step 3 and you solve the problem. You figure out what needs to be done. How are we going to work this out? And it's just 3 simple steps. Get yourself calm, time out for you, get your child calm, time in with them, solve the problem, work it out, time together.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Simple as that. But I mean, it's powerful. When I say that, it's powerful, right? Because we forget the first step. We start,
Yes.
we start assisting this child, right? We go right to,
Yeah.
And then
or
we
we
some time out instead of us.
We do. We force kids into timeout, and really, we need to model it. Because they learn better by watching what we do when we're under stress. And if they see us stomping our feet or taking a deep breath or yelling in the toilet or taking a few minutes to just get calm, that's how they learn it. They learn it much better than us forcing them into timeout and maybe having a power struggle over that. Some of my kids didn't go into timeout, so it was I learned the hard way.
And I think instead of homeschooling, unschooling would also solve that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
The motivation is there already, so you're less fighting and you're patient.
Yes, motivation's there, but I mean, one thing I'd like to say about that is when kids are coming home from a very authoritative school environment, and then you say, okay, we're going to unschool, they're going to need a few months. We say 1 month per year of that they've been in school just to unwind, get used to the fact that they own their education now and that they are going to have to entertain themselves, right? And it's going to take a while, and parents need patience with that process of them going from tell me what to do to, oh, I now get to learn things that I want to learn, and okay, I'm going to get motivated to do it. There might be a gap there.
Yes. So on that continuum you talked about earlier, the traditional school being told to this unschooling, that phase you just talked about, is that the one that we call it deschooling? Is that
That's
right?
what we call deschooling. Yes.
So
yes.
it's good that you I didn't put it all together like that. That's good. So veer to that end, but take the path. Right?
Yes, and actually the children have to deschool, but we have to deschool too, and wrap our head around that, hey, maybe video games are educational, or maybe my children don't have to learn through a textbook or workbook. Maybe they can watch a movie, or they can go to the zoo and learn, because everybody learns better when they're experiencing things rather than just reading or hearing.
Yeah. Did you have hard time when you started? Because we our parents told us if you watch TV, you're ruining your life, basically, right? Like you came from a, parenting like that probably too, right? Because that was the era. So did you have hard time, like just letting them?
Oh yes, I did. I was on a lot of unschooling support groups, and it's because we don't measure it. A lot of children's learning and percolating is invisible.
Yes.
And we don't demand output. We don't say, okay, I know you read this book, write me a book report or write me an essay on this movie. We don't demand that kind of output that schools demand, because they have to measure it and report to society, government, and taxpayers. We don't have to do that. So we don't demand output from our children, and we have to trust that they are learning. We really do. And you see it in little bits. One day my son was playing a video game, and he was telling me about a variable and equations and algebra, and I just looked at him like, wow, how did you learn that? I didn't see you get a textbook or anything, and he figured it out. And we have to trust that our children are constantly learning, and they want to learn. They want to be good citizens in society, and they want to learn the words to "Oh Canada" or to a country's anthem, any country's anthem. They want to do that. It's just that when they want to is not on our schedule.
Yeah, and that's why school is not motivating to a lot of students, because you're told
what you need to learn, when you need to learn it, and how you need to learn it.
And then we're going to test you.
And then we're going to test you.
Are you able to spit it out the right way without looking, right?
Right.
As fast as you can. As fast as you can.
The other thing I learned too is that when I first came to education, I thought, we just unzip children's brains, pour it all in, mash it up, and close it up. And most of my kids don't remember anything they did before age 12.
Mm.
All those field trips I took them to and classes at the homeschooling center, don't remember any of it. The only thing they remember is the Pokemon toy dispenser in the lobby of the homeschooling center. That's all they remember.
Mm.
And so it was good to take them and do all that because it stimulates their neurons. But play does the same thing. Video games, board games, travel, all those fun things do the same thing. It stimulates neurons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very important. Just to keep our mind out. Train us.
Yep.
Train yourself first, right?
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes. You teach 135 tools for raising caring responsible children without timeout, spanking, punishment, or bribery in your book called Discipline Without Distress.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share with us 3 of those tools?
Okay. I'll share 5 tools because they go with different age groups,
Awesome.
if that's okay.
Thank
Okay. So for babies, learn child development and learn brain development. Find out what kids are supposed to know at what age and have realistic expectations. For toddlers, redirect and childproof because they don't really think. Preschoolers, practice time in. So attend to them, their emotional, their social needs, because it's a tumultuous time. For school agers, best skill there is validation and listening, right? And problem solving. And for teenagers, it's being a mentor, and being a problem solver when they want you to be, but don't get in there unless they want you.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Thank you for those 5. That's very good. And why is attachment so important for our children?
Well, attachment is the bond between parents and children. And every child needs an attachment to one person. That's it. That's all the minimum they absolutely need for social and emotional healthy development. So they need to know one person has their back, is on their side. And it can be an uncle, it can be a parent, it can be dad, it can be grandparent, it can be, just someone caring that has a relationship with them. And we all live within healthy relationships, and that's the backbone of society and healthy adults, is that parent-child relationship, or that relationship with that one attachment person.
So in the book you wrote about discipline without distress, right? The attachment is one of the important component, right? Because then you have if you have a child who's attached and ready to listen, then you don't need to punish them. You have a better communication, right, with them. Yeah.
Yes, it's all about relationships, all about. So now I'm not saying, usually if there's a good attachment between the parent and the child, and the parent asks the child to do something, unless the child has a stronger reason not to, generally they do it. They will do it for the parent. And that's age appropriate too. So I have a chart I like to show to my attendants, but from 0 to age 3, children have very little self-control. So even if you ask them to do something at age 3, about 60% of the time they're not going to do it, just because they don't have that executive function part of their brain yet, right? But school age children, if you ask them to do something, 60% of the time they will do it to please you. And that's how you can motivate children to do things. Chores is a good example. Yes, they grumble all the way through the school age years, but by teenagers, you can ask them to do something And if you have that really good attached relationship, they'll do it because they want to do it for you because they love you, right? You don't have to bribe them. You don't have to force them or punish them if they don't do it. They'll do it.
Yeah. Yes. And it's also now going back to our time. We weren't, our parents didn't parent us that way, right? The punishment or bribery were a huge part of how we grew. And then that comes out in our parenting, right?
Yes. In times of stress, we tend to revert back to how we were parented. And definitely, I know in still, actually quite still, a majority of parents do use fear in that parent-child relationship to motivate the child. So they use fear or they use bribery. Screen time is the big currency right now of what parents use, and or taking away screen time. That's the big punishment. And it's kind of sad because as soon as you introduce fear into the relationship, what you give up is your open communication. So especially in our digital age, we want our kids to come to us with anything, with problems, with bullying. Maybe they're being harassed on the internet. Maybe they're having relationship problems with their girlfriends. We want to be their lifeline. And as soon as you introduce fear into your relationship through punishment, they're not going to come to you. They're going to come to anybody else. And that's what you give up. And I've seen that with my 5 kids. I've seen that they mess up, they make mistakes, and they come to me and say, I don't know how to fix this. And they come without fear of saying, well, you're going to lose your computer for a week, right? So we sit down and we say, okay, how are you going to fix this? How can I help support you while you fix this?
Yes.
And
wonder why they don't come to us after, right? Like they're not talking to me now.
Right.
With us. How do I get them to talk? And then we go starting to fix that relationship after. It's hard. That's why you have to open communication. Yes, thank you. And what is your advice for parents who are on the fence about sending their kids to school this fall or not? This is a big thing that's happening in our mind right now, right?
I would suggest register them, because if you need to register them in the school. I know in several countries there's a date that the government decides which school gets which funding based on the child registration, and parents will have to decide by that date whether they're going to keep them going into school, or maybe the first few weeks doesn't look very good and they want to pull them out. And absolutely they can still find curriculum if they want to homeschool, and they can find lots of things to do if they want to unschool. And I just want parents to be assured, whether children go to school, whether you homeschool them, or whether they unschool, they'll continue learning. They're born learners. Our brains activate all the time, and children do too. They will learn everything they need to know by the time they're 18, that they need to go on to post-secondary. They will keep learning with or without school.
Okay. So register and then research and plan.
Yeah, plan. They're telling schools to have plans ready for 3 scenarios, either school at home, or half and half. And I suggest to parents, you have 3 plans too. What are you going to do if they go to school? What would you do if they're going to homeschool? Or even what's half and half going to look like if you have to go to work too? How's that going to work in terms of childcare?
Yeah, and it's just hard to predict. It's all dependent on what's going to happen, right? So keep your options open, right?
Yes, and research. Come to conferences like this.
Yes, learn.
Yep.
Yes. I wanted to end by asking you, what did you enjoy as an unschooling mom in your journey? What did you enjoy the most?
I think what I enjoyed was our close family relationships. Now, of course, I mean, with 5 kids, there are days that there was nonstop fighting because that's normal. But my partner was working out of the country at the time and would come home for only 10 days out of 2 months. And the kids were all there and we could do things. We were there 24/7 with their dad. And I think I really liked the bonds we developed as a family. So my 5 kids are still best friends now. They live in different countries. They live in different provinces, and they still get together and game over Discord. Or, I can walk into my living room and hear my son in Japan, and I say, "Oh, hello, how are you?" Because they're all gaming and talking to each other. And those bonds, it's not like kids that go to school and they're not supposed to talk to their brother because their brother is a grade older, right? So you don't get that when you're at home. You get that your sibling is your friend, and that those bonds continue lifelong between parents and siblings. And we just had a lot of fun together. We traveled, we world schooled to so many countries because we were able to. I mean, the kids didn't remember much, but the recent trips they do.
World school, that's just taking the unschool on the go.
Yes.
Is that right? Am I right?
Yeah. It's taking unschooling or a curriculum. A lot of travelers tend to bring curriculum with them too, or not. And we didn't. So we would just go and learn about countries and visit people. And it was just so much fun.
Yeah, I can't imagine you get to visit always. You don't have to wait for your summer holiday or the winter.
No, not as crowded.
Yeah, everybody goes out and then we're in the mountains. But world schooling, is that driven by the child's interest? I know you had 5 kids, so you can't go to 5 different places at one time, but is that they or you chose to integrate them part of the learning?
I think us parents decided where we were going because we either had relatives there or a place to stay. So, or my work, I also speak in different countries. So we decided where we were going, and the kids would come along and experience so many different things, like swimming with sharks, or swimming, or going to different museums in different countries, or and we would always stay with locals. We didn't tend to do cruise ships or package tours. We're unschooling travelers too. We do, we're pretty independent.
I'm just getting inspired to take my son out and go traveling when we're allowed. Right now.
And they become really independent, good travelers too. Like my kids have traveled now on their own, and that's part of that attachment parenting. They feel they have the roots, so they feel the wings that they want to go travel, and they still feel attached to their families.
Beautifully said. One more question, sorry, is that some families, like we have a lot of families that are separated, right? And then if they choose a path like this, like homeschooling, unschooling, there's a lot of things that needs to be openly talked about, because 2 different families, right? 2 different households, right? How do you help them figure this out if they want to go in the route of unschooling, homeschooling?
It helps. It makes things smoother if both parents are on board. But in a lot of cases, they're not on board. I tend to give the advice that the person who does the most research, who it matters more for, should be the person that gets to do it, because it falls on them to administer and facilitate. I know my partner, he didn't agree with homeschooling for the first 10 years. And I didn't even tell him we unschooled because he was traveling all the time. But now he's the biggest advocate. Now that, you know, we have 3 university graduates, he's telling everybody about it. But I would suggest that have everybody research it. So the naysayers in my life, I say, we will have this conversation after you read a book about homeschooling or you read a book about unschooling, and then let's come back and talk about it. So to get the other partner on board, ask them to do a bit more research, and because usually the parent that decides very often is the mom and has put in a lot of research and feels very passionate about it and wants to make it work. So yeah, it's a tough situation.
Yeah, it is. It is. It adds to the whole extra stress of change, right? Change is hard, but we are being tested, aren't we, this year, right?
We are. And like I tell everybody, it's only for a year. You're not signing up for a lifetime.
Yes.
And you will not mess up your kids. They'll continue to learn and, you know, make those pathways between their brain cells. You can't stop that. You can't stop a child from learning, and you can't force a child to learn.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And your books are just amazing addition to whatever parents are feeling right now, to must read, you know, so that they don't feel those fears, because what's the point of fearing all the time, right? If you got to decide, is it that way or this way? And then, as you said, try it for 1 year. If it doesn't work, then there's always another way. Yeah.
There always is. You could always put your kids back into school, and you can always homeschool too at any point in time. And I have a lot of parenting articles on my blog, and I have 2 blogs. I have an education blog and a parenting blog. And then I have my website, which is professionalparenting.ca.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I
will. Thank you.
Nice to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely meeting you.